How we doing, everybody, and welcome into Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. I'm your host, Trage. No Aaron tonight on the show. He's got work came up. Everything was just a mess for him, apparently. So he will not be on tonight. Will just be me tonight here on the show. Man, is it cold. Holy crap. All day today. We were working outside. The greatest thing about the state of Wisconsin and farmers in the state of Wisconsin is they don't pay attention that their water heaters for their cows don't work until it's cold out. And then they're like, "Oh, yeah, it just I forgot about this, but yeah, this doesn't work." So, that's what we were doing all day. It's like the wind chill was down in -10, -15, and we're standing out there in the wind and the cold and the snow and everything else working on water heaters. So, it was a fantastic day. Fantastic day today, but we got lots to get into sports wise. Badger football, I saw the 2025 schedule came out, and wow, that's something to look at there. So I want to get into that today. I want to look. Braden Locke entered the transfer portal. That's another quarterback for the Badgers now entering the transfer portal. So I mean, the quarterback room is slim at the moment. A lot of young guys, right? Carter Smith, Mabry's in there right now, and that's about it at this very moment. So getting slim pickings, hopefully, maybe looking at the transfer portal, find a bona fide starter, somebody who can come in and kind of take the reins over with Jeff Grimes now at the helm of the offense. So we'll kind of get into that today. Badger basketball, men's. I mean, that was about that last night. It was. I want to talk about that. We're going to get to that a little bit later. Baseball winter meetings have been going on here. Juan Soto deal. I want to talk about that a little bit. I want to look at the Brewers and just talk about the Brewers and what we think the Brewers could do. And I want to hear what you guys think of the Brewers right now, the roster, how they're sitting, everything like that, and where you would think the Brewers should add. I know the budget, according to Pat Murphy, what we heard, the budget is a little tight heading into the winter meeting. So I want to talk about that today. And then just looking at the Packers a little bit. I got a little bit to talk about with the Packers here. So we will see where the day takes us. As always, send your comments and opinions in the chat wherever you are tuning in tonight, YouTube, Twitter, wherever it is. Make sure you're sending in your comments there. And then also the text in line right below me there, the text in line, the 715 number. You can text into the show. Let me know your opinions. Badger basketball, Badger football, the baseball, anything with baseball, Brewers, Packers, whatever you got, send it in. I'd love to talk about it here. I'd love to talk to you guys and see what you guys think of the Badger basketball lately, whatever you want to talk about. I want to get into it tonight here. So I want to look right away at this Badger football team. And we know Braden Locke, he enters the portal now. I mean, I hope for the best for Braden Locke, right? He is nothing but he was accountable. Everything that he did wrong, he lets you know it. And yes, there was a lot wrong. And I'm not saying that I am I'm not over here deeply saddened by the loss of Braden Locke, not by any means, because he was never a fit. He was never right for this team. And it stinks, right? It stinks for him as a player because, I mean, he definitely was a grinder. He tried, right? And, trying only gets you so far, but he was a grinder. He gave you his all. He held himself accountable for everything that he did wrong, and he owned up to it. And sometimes that tells you a lot about a person, a player, everything like that. So you just wish that there would have been some kind of look at some point where you were like, Braden Locke, you've been struggling, but there is something. Right. And we just never saw that. So Braden Locke enters the transfer portal just after Tyler Van Dyke entered the transfer portal there. That one was odd because it kind of seemed like he was trending on coming back. And then I don't know what happened between him and Luke Fickell, but he's out the door. So him and Braden Locke out the door there. Mabry and Carter Smith in that slim picking quarterback room right now, as of right now. We'll see what happens. Jeff Grimes now in the room. And you know what? We talked about that a little bit. And I saw he did an interview the other day there. I believe it was with Mark Tauscher. He did that interview. And I loved everything that I saw in that interview. Came out and he said, he didn't really know Luke Fickell before all this. He knew of him, but he didn't know Luke Fickell personally, right? And got on the phone with him. And, they kind of just aligned what they wanted, what they saw, what they wanted to get to or what they wanted to do. They just aligned with it. So Jeff Grimes coming in now. I don't dislike the move at all. I don't. Getting back to a more of a Wisconsin style, right? Get the ground game going. That was something that the Badgers they just couldn't do at times, was get that ground game going. And that's a big thing that Jeff Grimes is going to try and get into this program once again. Getting those offensive linemen, getting the horses, right? You got to have the horses first. So get those offensive linemen built up. And then from there, then your backs can get going. Once you get the backs going, and don't get me wrong, like Jeff Grimes said, and like I've seen Kansas or when he was at Baylor, this isn't a we're just going to run the football and that's all we're going to do kind of offense. He wants to get the vertical threat. He wants to still be vertical. He wants to still utilize the passing game. What I like about the offense is what he said, where it's going to be more of an NFL style in his words, right? And more of an NFL style, getting away from that pro style air raid spread offense, getting more, there's going to be a lot of formations, a lot of, motions, shifts, all that kind of stuff, but getting back to the basics of Wisconsin football. Get it on the ground, make that work. Once the ground game, you have to have some sort of ground game to open up the passing game. You don't have the athletes of what, let's just say, like Alabama or Georgia, right? They have good run games too, but you don't have those blow guys away athletes. Vinny Anthony I thought he had a fantastic year, right? I thought Vinny Anthony was fantastic, but you don't have those guys. So you have to be able to start up somewhere, right? And I love the fact that he says, I'm going to get the ground game going first, and that's not going to take away from everything, right? He still wants the ground game to help develop those vertical passing routes off that run. And what he said, maintaining unpredictability, right? You don't know what they're going to do. 3rd and 10. They might run the football, like he said. And you know what? That seems kind of odd, right? But he wants to keep defenses on their toes, and that's something you have to do. Wisconsin under Phil Longo, and you know what? It sucked, but Phil Longo to me became almost predictable at times, right? It was Tyree Walker lines up to the left of Braden Locke. He's going to the right. He lines up to the right. He's going to the left. It was so basic, and defenses knew that. They knew what was coming, and we saw that at times against Penn State, sitting up there in the bleachers and watching that game, sitting up there in the seats, and I was at the game and watching that. It's like you knew what was coming before it happened, and it was just so predictable. And I love the fact that he says we're going to be unpredictable. We don't want guys. We want to keep these defenses on their toes, and that's what you got to do, right? That's what you have to do. You look at Penn State, you look at Oregon, you see some of the trickery that they throw in there, everything else, and you don't have to do it with trickery. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is you have to have some kind of unpredictability where you don't become complacent. You don't want to be a vanilla offense. You want to have some of the motions, the shifts, to throw the defense off, get the linebackers going one way, and you're going the other way. You got to have that, and Phil Longo wasn't doing that for the Badgers. So I love, if Jeff Grimes, you don't know yet, right? We haven't seen it. We haven't seen it yet. So I can't just sit here and say, though, well, this is how it's going to be, right? We don't know. But what's it going to hurt, right? What's it going to hurt? Phil Longo's offense was not going to work in Wisconsin. It wasn't. You did not have the playmakers for it. You didn't. This kind of offense, this helps recruit in the state of Wisconsin. Why? Because you know what Barry Alvarez did? He recruited in the state of Wisconsin so well. Offensive linemen, right? The offensive linemen we got a lot of good offensive linemen coming out of the state of Wisconsin. And I'm not saying you're just going to go back to what Barry was doing, right? Because you cannot, I'm not saying you can't win with the run game, but what I'm saying is you got to have some kind of, like I was saying, unpredictability where you're still going to throw the ball around. And that's what Jeff Grimes is going to do. So I love that move. I do. I love the move of Jeff Grimes, and I can't wait to see what happens. I can't, because what I've seen over the past couple years from this Badger team, it's nothing good. Nothing good. So I want to hear what you guys got to say. If you're in the comment section right now, or if you're watching the show right now, I'd love to hear what you guys think about the move for Jeff Grimes coming into Madison there. So looking at that 2025 schedule, that's kind of where I wanted to get with this today here. Looking at that 2025 schedule for the Badgers, and it's daunting. It is a daunting schedule. I mean, you start out right away. You have your 2 easy games, right? You want to say easy games there. You play Miami of Ohio, and then you play Middle Tennessee. So you have your 2 easier games, right? But then you get into this is where the gauntlet is going to start, right? You have Alabama, and that's going to be in Tuscaloosa. It's going to be at Alabama for that game. So right there, that's a tough start, right? That's a tough start for that one, at Alabama. And then you're going to play Maryland. And Maryland's an unpredictable team, right? And all these teams, and don't get me wrong, all these teams are unpredictable. You don't know if Ryan Day gets fired, what happens at Ohio State, or Oregon, if Dylan Gabriel leaves, what's going to happen? What's going to happen with all these different Indiana? What's Indiana going to look like? Washington, what if they have a great transfer portal ad? I mean, you don't know. You have no idea. But we can only base it off of what we know from success of these teams, right? And what their recruiting class looks like and all that. So Maryland, they're always unpredictable to me. You never know. Maryland goes on the road this year against Oregon, and they played them tough right off the bat. I mean, they ended up getting blown out, but played them tough. So you never know what you're going to get with the Maryland team. But then comes the gauntlet of the schedule, right? The October schedule for the Badgers. And I don't know if the Big Ten I don't want to say they hate Wisconsin by any means, but I don't know what they have against the Badgers, but this October stretch is rough, right? So you start out with Michigan, you go to Ann Arbor, you're going to play at Michigan, and then you have at home against Iowa. So you don't have to go down to Iowa this time. You get Iowa at home, but then you play Ohio State at home the week after, and then following that, you're going to go to Oregon. So you have Ohio State and Oregon back to back, middle of the season. Ohio State, Oregon back to back. That's tough. That is right there. That October. I mean, you want to be optimistic, right? You want to be optimistic. So I hope that it's a good October, right? But that is a daunting schedule in October. And then after October, getting into November, you're going to see the likes of Washington, Indiana, Illinois, and then Minnesota to wrap up the season there. I mean, that's a tough schedule all the way around. So my biggest question, I got in the bottom line there. Can you define success next season for the Badger football team off of wins and losses? So what I mean by that is Luke Fickell. There's a lot of people out there who say Luke Fickell should be fired, and he should have been fired already, and the program's trending in the wrong direction, and he's not going to be able to fix it, and all those kinds of things. So my biggest question is, you look at that schedule, and let's just say you look off this season's success going into next season, right? So Alabama's going to be a good football team. Michigan, they got a good recruiting class coming in right now, and you expect Michigan is going to add people or add personnel, right? So Michigan looking like they're going to be solid. Iowa always gives you trouble, right? Ohio State, I would expect Ohio State's still going to be a good team, right? And then Oregon, right? So you have those four teams right there where those are going to be tough ones. And then you have your Washingtons, you have your Indianas, you have your Minnesota game, you have Illinois, Illinois has been tough. Illinois can play some gritty football. They have shown it. And Maryland, like I said, they play gritty. So you look at Luke Fickell and you say, okay, what am I going to define you off of, right? Is it going to be wins and losses? And this season, I don't think I was as upset about the losses that the Badgers took, right? If they would have went down to Iowa City and they would have lost that game, let's just say one of those stupid scores, right? 15-6, something just stupid like that, right? I don't think I would have taken that one so bad, right? Or the loss to Nebraska. They would have lost that one, let's just say 27-23, right? I don't think I'm looking at it and saying, I don't trust you, right? But it's those games where I'm not looking at the Oregon game. I thought they played fantastic in the Oregon game defensively. Offensively, they can't really get anything going, but defensively, I thought they played great. I mean, they held Oregon to 16 points? How many teams can say they've done that this season, right? Ohio State can't even say that. So they played good against Oregon there. They played 3 good quarters against Penn State. The fourth quarter, the defense was on the field for 3 quarters of the game, so you're going to run out of gas there. Alabama, you were there for the first quarter, and then after that, it was a rout, right? So I don't think I take as much from those games as I do. Okay, when you went to Iowa, when you played Nebraska, and you lost those games, it looked terrible, right? You look like you didn't even belong on the same football field as them. And that's what I think I took the most from. So when I say, can you define that success next season for the Badgers off of wins and losses, and I look at the schedule, if you go to Ann Arbor and defense comes out, pisses hot, right? And the offense comes out and whoever's running quarterback, right? And whatever it looks like, and you just have a good game, but Michigan just beats you because they have a better game. I'm not looking at that as a bad loss, right? It's a loss. Every loss is bad in the grand scheme of things, but when I look at these games, and I want to see this Badger team in those games perform. I want to see them show me something that points me in a direction where, hey, if we just had a little bit better of, if this would have happened or if this would have happened, right? That would have changed this game. That's where I'm looking with this Badger team next season. I want to say, yes, I want to define it off wins and losses. And that's what you do. You define a season off of wins and losses. I understand that. I do. But to see the trajectory of the program and which way it's heading, these first 2 seasons under Luke Fickell, that's what I wanted to see. I wasn't expecting the Badgers to go, 12-1 and end up in the college football playoff. Would that be great? Yeah, sure. That'd be fantastic. But I wasn't expecting it. What I wanted to see was growth of this program. Look like it's trending somewhere where it looked like it's going in the right direction. And I haven't seen that yet. That's my problem, is I haven't seen that yet. So this next season, I'm defining it off of, what does this program look like? What does it look like? Do they come out every single week and show us something that's like, hey, they're trending towards something. They're getting this program is trending in the right direction. Once these guys get older, once Carter Smith gets into the system and he starts to work a little bit and he gets a little bit older, and all these other recruits they have coming in, Posta and all of them, once they start to develop and they get up into the starting ranks and we start to see these guys and they get a little bit older and they get, a little bit more weathered, then what, right? And that's what I want to see, is that we're trending in that direction. And that starts here in the offseason, right? The transfer portal. You got to go out there. Defensive line has been atrocious, right? The defensive line was atrocious this year. You got to find guys to bolster that defensive line. You can't bank on recruits. You can't. I mean, yes, maybe a recruit comes in, and they just blow up the world, right? Maybe they just look fantastic in spring, in the fall, and you're just like, okay, these guys are going to be, right away they're in. You can't bank on that anymore. You got to go into the portal, just like all these other teams do. Look at Indiana. How'd they get good so fast, right? They went into the portal. They found guys. That's what you got to do. You got to go into the portal. You got to find guys, right? Wide receiver room, you're going to have to replace some guys. The way that it's looking, the guys that I've seen they're looking at, a little bit more, a little more height, a little bigger, right? So that's where they're kind of looking. Wide receiver room, you got to look probably for pieces on that offensive line, try to bolster up that position there. Defensive line, cornerback room, right? The cornerbacks have kind of cleared out. So you're looking in that cornerback room now. You're saying we need to add guys in there. So the portal season is now open, and you got to find something in there. You got to find something in there that's going to spark up this team going into next season, because you can't just bank on recruits anymore. You can't just bank on development. You got to find pieces in that transfer portal. So that's where we're kind of looking right now. It's going to be interesting to see who the Badgers get in that transfer portal, as it now just opened this last Monday. So now we see all the offers going out and everything like that. We'll kind of see if any of these guys commit soon, or if it's going to be a little bit, what's going to happen there. I really do think the big thing was to get your offensive coordinator spot figured out, which they did. And now it's going to be about, okay, now what do we do to Jeff Grimes is in there now. He knows, he has a vision of what he wants in this program and what he wants to see. Now let's see what he's going to do with it. So I like the direction with Jeff Grimes. Now we got to see it. Now we got to see it on the football field. So that's all I got. Badger football there. We're going to see what happens there in the transfer portal and kind of where this kind of trends towards, if they get a quarterbacks coach yet and everything like that. So good stuff there with the Badger football team right now. But we got to get to the not so good. There's always some not so good, right? I always hate this. I always hate going to the not so good at any point. But we got to talk about this Badger basketball team right now, because it just, over these past 3 games, right, have been rough all the way around. And I think what makes this whole 3-game losing streak worse, and it's, honestly, it's not Marquette. Marquette fans are going to be like, oh, it's a loss to us, losing that big in-state rivalry game. Shut up. No, it's not that loss to you guys. We went on the road. We went on the road to Marquette. And I tell you what, that Pfizer Forum, that was rocking. That was rocking. That was a great crowd. They were rocking all game long. They were up. They were excited. They were getting after it. And that's a tough environment to play in when it's like that. So, hats off to the Marquette fans for showing up and showing out and getting loud and, creating a atmosphere that was tough to play at, because that was definitely a big factor in that Marquette game. But I look at that's 3-game losing streak, and the biggest one is the Michigan game, right? Because we always talk about it. It's hard to win on the road in the Big Ten. It is. It's very difficult to win on the road in the Big Ten. But winning at home, you got it. You just have to, right? Maybe slip up here and there. But that Michigan game is daunting on this 3-game losing streak because I don't think it's as you go to Champaign and you lose this game to Illinois. You've lost 9 straight. I mean, that's not great. I'm not saying that's great at all. And would I have loved to go to on the road to Illinois and beat Illinois? Heck yeah. Heck yeah, I would have. But that game isn't as it doesn't get me as like upset, right? And it's not the Marquette game either. I mean, yeah, it was a rivalry, I guess, in state and everything like that. And Marquette fans I still hear them talking all over Twitter and everywhere else you want to look. They're still getting hype about it. But I look at that Michigan game, and that one hurt the most. That one hurt the most to me. I don't know if for you guys it was the same thing. For me, that one hurt the most. So we got that Michigan loss. You got the Marquette loss. Now you get this game against Illinois. And, I mean, it seems like a broken record, and it seems like we're going back to last season. We're kind of reverting back to what we saw last season out of this team or out of a certain player, right? But Steven Crowell, I've always tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. I've always tried to give Steven Crowell the benefit of the doubt, whatever it was. And right now, Steven Crowell is one of the biggest problems on this Badger team. He is. And if you want to go player-wise, there's a lot of problems. There's a lot of problems right now. We can talk about turnovers. We can talk about rebounding. We're going to talk about that. But Steven Crowell's lack of post presence and his lack of ability to play any kind of physical basketball without when he gets aggressive, he fouls, right? When Big Steve gets aggressive, he starts to just throw it around a little bit. And when he gets aggressive in the post, same thing. And, last night he had a couple of moves there where he was, his normal little hook and it wasn't there. But I can't tell you that I've seen a time where Steven Crowell, outside of that, I think it was in that NIT tournament where he just started lighting it up from downtown. Outside of that game, I can't tell you a game where I was like, I'm glad Big Steve's on there on the offensive end. I am just so happy for it, right? You have to have some kind of post presence. Right now, the Badgers have none. Right now, they have none. They have nothing down there. No physical play down there, nothing. And you want to look early on this season. What made the Badgers so successful early on in the season there? And what led to John Tonje looking good and all these guys getting going? And one of the biggest reasons was Steven Crowell's passing ability. It was get it in the post, and he found cutters. He found cutters coming in behind him, whatever it was. It's not there anymore. There's no cutting to the basket. All of a sudden, we have both of our big guys are playing the perimeter, right? Steven Crowell spent more time against Illinois at the three-point line than he spent in the post. There was zero post presence down there. And you come out of this game with no rebounds. 0 rebounds. You're a 7-footer, and you have 0 rebounds. We say it all the time with Brook Lopez. Brook Lopez sometimes will come out of games. It's like the 7-footer's got 1 or 2 rebounds in a game. How's that even happen, right? Steven Crowell gives you no rebounds last night. The Marquette game, I believe he had like 11 against Marquette. So when you look at that game, you're like, oh, well, at least he was boarding, right? At least he was getting after the boards. This one here, you look at this game and you look at Illinois. 15 offensive rebounds. At the half, they had 9 offensive rebounds. So actually, they cleaned it up a little bit, I guess you could say, the offensive rebounds in the second half. But still, 15 offensive rebounds on the game they had in this one. And your big man has 0. I don't know how much more simple it is than Greg Gard. You know what? Greg Gard, I don't actually... I know a lot of people are like, you don't call out your players to the media and all that kind of stuff. And I could see that. I could see where you're like, don't call them out there, talk to them in the locker room. You know what? You get asked a question and you're looking at the stat line. You're like, my big man has no rebounds in this game. That's something that needs to get fixed. And he said it point blank right there. And I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I need you to go into practice now. And I need you because you don't really have an option. There's no options. Where's the options, right? I mentioned it a couple times. I was like, you know what? We always talk about big men coming in. They don't have the size. They don't have the physicality. They don't have the ability to play with the bigs in the Big Ten because they're not big enough yet, right? I mentioned it, Greppy, right? He's a freshman, but he's 6'10 and he's 255 pounds. If there is a guy on this team who will get Carter Gilmore gives me energy, right? I love the way Carter Gilmore's playing right now. I really do. I think that all those minutes that are going to Xavier Amos, to me, he knocks down a three. But beyond that, sometimes I watch Xavier Amos and he's hit or miss, right? He's like a Liam Ford for me. A Liam Ford was always hit or miss for me. One game he comes out, he's hotter than a pistol, and the next game he ain't got nothing. And Xavier Amos is that for me right now. He went through a stretch there where he was playing good defense. Him and Gilmore, they came in that first half, and I think Avizic kind of went away for Illinois, and they did well in the post. They did well defensively in the post. I'm not going to, Xavier Amos didn't play terrible, but Carter Gilmore brings the energy night in and night out, brings the energy. He's a leader on this team. He can finally knock down shots, right? We're seeing that now. He's knocking down shots, and sometimes I wish he wouldn't pump fake out there. I wish he would just pull it. Like when he shoots in rhythm, he's got a beautiful shot now. I think the shot looks good now. Shoot it. Like, what's it going to hurt at this point here? In this game here, I don't hate, Nolan Winter's got the ability to shoot it from downtown, right? He's got the ability to shoot it, but he went 2 for 7 from downtown in this game. 2 for 7. And then we look at Steven Crowl, 1 for 4 from downtown. I don't like those numbers. I don't. I don't like the numbers when I see my big men with 11 threes on the game, 3 for 11 on the game from downtown there. And I see their shot selection and where they're coming from and the lack of it in the post, right? The biggest thing that I'm talking about is we have no post identity right now. You might be this team that's shooting more threes. You might be this team that's trying to play faster, but you still have to have something down low, right? Kansas can get out and run, but Kansas has still got Hunter Dickinson, right? Duke has still got the ability to go down the post. Michigan State goes down in the post. Marquette will still use that post, right? We saw it. Look at the points in the paint against Marquette there. I think they had 44 points in the paint. Now, that's not just the big men doing the work. That's guys getting down the lane and everything like that. But having the big man who can not just spread the floor, but have the ability to play in that post area, it takes the pressure off the guards. Because when you have to respect that post player, you're going to try to double. You're going to bring guys down. You're going to try and get him to get rid of the basketball. What does that do? It opens up shooters, right? So you got to have some kind of post presence. And right now, Crowell is not giving you anything. And I try to fend off the people that are like, he's like Charmin Ultrasoft down there, and he doesn't have it. And I try to sit here and defend him or defend it and say, you know what, he's got some ability and he's got some ability to shoot it from downtown. I seriously try, but I sit here and I watch. It just ain't there. It ain't. And you've kind of played yourself into this point here because you look at this team now and it's like, where do you go? Where do you go if Steven Crowell doesn't get those minutes? Okay, you can put just Nolan Winter. I am honestly at the point where running the two bigs, what the heck's the point? What's the point of running two bigs if you don't utilize the post anyways? What's the point of running two bigs, right? If you're going to be this team that wants to cut, if you want to be this team that wants to play fast, that's fine. Put Nolan Winter out there. And I don't know if it's crazy. I don't know if it's crazy talk right now, but start Kamari McGee. Just start him. Put a natural point guard out there on the floor. Because you know what? To me, you put Kamari McGee out there. So this will be my hypothetical starting five. And I want to hear in the comment section there if you guys, anybody watching this, if you agree, if you disagree, what you guys think Badger basketball right now. But I look at this starting lineup. And I'm like, where could you go wrong if you have McGee, Klesmit, Blackwell, Tanjay, Nolan Winter? There's your starting five, right? Or you put Steven Crowell in. I don't care what you do. But you have one big out there. You have a true point guard out there. You're allowing Blackwell to play off the ball, which, yes, I don't want to take Blackwell's ability to drive away, right? But playing off the ball might get him open for some of that stuff coming off the wing, right? I want Blackwell in a wing spot. I want to see Tanjay out there in a wing. Klesmit, he's running that too, right? And then you have Kamari McGee bringing the ball down. Let Blackwell be the off the ball guard that can get the job done scoring the basketball. Give him options to score. I want him to be a scorer. And you can do that in that point guard spot. But I want him to be just a scorer, just a guy who I know I get him the ball, let him drive, right? There is right now this Badger team is at times what I praised them for early on this season was the ball movement. It was constant. It was boom, 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 boom. Ball was zipping around, and they were getting open shots, and they were finding cutters, and they were seeing open lanes, and they were getting to the basket. And Tanjay was getting to the basket, and he was getting fouled or whatever it was, going to the rim there. Same with Blackwell. Same with, Klesmit. Right now, Klesmit, I don't know what's going on with Klesmit right now. I really don't. He right now is struggling to shoot the basketball. We saw that even free throw wise last night. Free throw wise, 3 for 6 for Klesmit last night at the free throw line. This is a 90% free throw shooter on the season. John Blackwell, 2 for 4. You want to talk about free throws? This season, free throws have won us games, right? Look at the Arizona game. Free throws won us that game. You look at this game here. Illinois came into this game as one of the worst free throw shooting teams. And Wisconsin came in as one of the best. And if you looked at the final tally in this one, you wouldn't have believed it. You would have said, well, Illinois, they're a pretty good free throw shooting team. And you look at the statistics on the year, and no, they're not. Wisconsin is. And they shot 14 for 21, and Illinois went 22 for 25. There's your difference in the ball game. Big time difference, right? So right now there's a lot of problems with Badger basketball. And it starts with the bigs for me. It really does, but it starts with the energy of this team has been lackadaisical, right? Getting after the boards. Rebounding has been a problem. We saw it, we won the Arizona game, but rebounding was a problem in that game. Rebounding was a big problem. There was a big disparity. The Badgers got out-rebounded by like 25 in that game against Arizona. And they won the basketball game. I'm not saying they didn't. They found a way to win that game while struggling to rebound the basketball. And you were just waiting, right? Waiting for it to show its ugly head one more time. And it did right here. It did in this game. It did against Marquette. I believe it did. If I'm not mistaken, the Michigan game, Michigan was doing well on the boards there. I just wanted to check that out. Michigan in that game, 13 offensive rebounds. They had 43 rebounds overall. They out-rebounded the Badgers by 1. It's not crazy disparity there, but out-rebounded the Badgers in that game there. Rebounding has consistently been a problem for this team. And it's something that you don't with Badger basketball, it's like what you always expected out of Bo Ryan's teams, at least, were physicality, free throws, and just ball security, right? Free throws, rebounding, ball security. What you're getting out of this Badger team now, undisciplined play, where a lot of timely, costly turnovers, right? Like the worst spots you can. There was, in all 3 of these losses, there was a point in the Marquette game where it wasn't out of reach. Marquette came out swinging in the second half. They came out swinging. And nobody can deny that. And Marquette, I don't like Marquette. Everybody knows that. I'll tell everybody that. I'll tell Marquette fans that. I'll tell everybody around the state of Wisconsin. I do not like Marquette. Well, Marquette in that second half came out swinging, and the Badgers were caught flat-footed. And it's just like every possession for a while there, it was turnover. And they just couldn't find any kind of rhythm in those games. Same with, look at the Illinois game. They had moments, they went down 10. They would go down 10, and they'd get that thing back to like 5. They get it down to 5. They couldn't find that big shot, right? And it was the costly turnover. It was the defensive stops, right? You want to talk about problems defensively. This Badger team has problems right now. Getting under, whether it's going under screens, whether it's going over screens, cutters, defending in the post, offensive rebounds, right? Second chance points, fast break points have been a problem for this team. Points off turnovers have been huge against the Badgers right now. There's so many things right now where this Badger team is lacking, and we saw it for the Badgers early on, right? It was those games against Holy Cross or UT Rio Grande, right? Where they'd come out slow and they're kind of sloppy and playing undisciplined and turning the basketball over. And they didn't seem like they wanted it more than those lesser teams, right? And my biggest question was, okay, so now what happens when you get behind a good team, right? And they got behind Pitt and they came back and they showed fight. They showed fight in this Illinois game, but it wasn't enough. They didn't have that stop. They didn't have that key stop, right? There's when you're in the middle of a comeback in a basketball game, whatever it is, there's a key moment, a key stop within that game that you look back on. You're like, when that happened, it changed it, right? The Kentucky game, Sam Decker took a charge, right? That was a big moment, a big stop for the Badgers in that Final Four game there. You look at moments throughout games, and it's like, that was the turning point. That was it. That was my turning point in that game. They don't have that right now. They don't have that defensive stop. They don't have that ability. It's like when they would finally get Illinois to miss a shot. Illinois went on this burner there. Yakchunas, he's fantastic. I mean, I believe he's a freshman, and he's fantastic. He can shoot it. He can get to the rim. He was doing a lot of things in that game, and he'd get hot. But when the Badgers would finally force a miss, offensive rebound. And it's like, all right, now we're playing, and offensive rebound. And it was consistent. They get it down to 5, and they didn't have that answer all game long. Didn't have that answer. That's the thing, too. Big plays, right? Big players. Who's going to make that play for you late in the game, right? And Klesmit has made some big shots at times, right? But right now, he's cold. They can't find ways to get Tanjay open at the moment. Blackwell's doing well driving at the rim. And I hats off to Blackwell for kind of keeping the Badgers around in this one. He kept them around. McGee kept them around. And that's what I'm saying is that right now you're lacking energy on the floor. And it starts with Steven Crowell. The energy that Steven Crowell brings ain't much. It ain't much for this Badger team. You got to see some more energy out of him. We got to see more energy out of this Badger team. They got to be more active on the boards. Like that's where it starts, is on the boards. That's where it's going to start for this team. If they want to turn it around, you got to clean up two things. Because outside of that, you scored 80 points, right? And yes, some of that was late in the game, but you scored 80 points on the road. 80 points in the Big Ten should win you most games. It wasn't in this one. You got to clean up those little things. The rebounding, the turnovers, right? Those are the big things. Knocking down free throws is huge. This one, I mean, the Badgers couldn't shoot free throw for some reason. It just went away, right? But knocking down those free throws. You played good enough to score 80 points in this one. But defensively, rebounding, turnovers. Those are your big things right now. This team, it's like they at times lack confidence. They lack confidence in themselves. They lack confidence in each other. Right now, I thought this team was so gelled. They were so well knit. They were moving the basketball around early on this season. I was like, I'm excited for this team. They might not have all the talent in the world, right? But man, they can play fast and they can shoot, right? When the shots aren't falling and you get into some of these games, like we're seeing right now, you're getting into some of these games when the shots aren't there. Klesmit goes cold or Tanjay's not scoring. That's a big one right now. Tanjay's not scoring like he was. Or Blackwell's in foul trouble, right? Foul trouble has been a problem for this team. Undisciplined play, right? Just hacking at the ball. Or the silly things like on the offensive end. I mean, we talk about, I believe it was it that Michigan game or was it against Marquette there or Tanjay on the baseline gets called for a hook, right? An offensive foul. Just those little undisciplined things where they're costly for this team. And I honestly, in this Illinois game, I thought they did a fantastic job of weathering a storm when Klesmit was out. Blackwell was on the bench with foul trouble, and they were running a 5 that you wouldn't really write home about, right? Gilmore was in there, McGee was in there, Amos was in there, and they held it, and they held a lead. They were taking care of their business out there. The Badger team needs more. They need more energy. They got to come up with more energy. They got to rebound the basketball. They got to limit the turnovers. The turnovers have been costly for this team. I mean, you're talking about the 12 turnovers against Illinois here. 12 turnovers against Illinois. Yes, you did. You didn't turn it over as much as Illinois. I don't know if you want a handshake or a sticker for that. You didn't turn them all, over that much, but 12 turnovers in this one, 15, I believe, against Marquette. That's a problem. Turnovers, rebounding. It's fixable. I'm not sitting here telling you that we need to throw in the towel. I'm not sitting here telling you that. And I know the fire Greg Gard meter has been just blaring. The sirens are going off right now. They're like, we got to fire this guy. I mean, it's over. It's over. And I don't want to say that I'm going to fire Greg Gard. I'm not going to fire him, but he's got to fix this. He's got to, because right now they're beating themselves. It's not that these teams, yes, Marquette played a fantastic game, right? But 15 turnovers. Illinois played a good game. 12 turnovers. Out-rebounded you. 40-29. Offensive rebounds. 15 of them in the game for Illinois. Wisconsin at 11. It was a lot late. But right now, you're getting beat up by beating yourself. Not being the aggressor. Come out, be the aggressor. Arizona. The Arizona game impressed me. Yes, they shot a lot of free throws, and I know a lot of people are going to allude to the free throws being the reason why the Badgers won that game. And it was a big part, right? It was a big part, but they were the aggressor. They got after Arizona. They went at the rim. They did all those things. Steven Crowell was even being aggressive in that game. They were being the aggressor. You got to come out and be the aggressor now. You've dropped 3 in a row. You're hopefully, it's December. Usually this isn't the problem, right? Usually we fall into this trap in February. February is usually the problem. You get into February. Okay, now we're losing basketball games. You get into, late January. Now we're losing basketball games. It's usually not right now, right? The fall of this team happens in January to February. Not now. What the heck's going on, right? So now you figure it out. And it's not saying this team's lost 3 in a row. But like I said, they've been beating themselves up. Michigan, they beat themselves up. You couldn't figure out a pick and roll. Beat themselves up. Marquette beat themselves up. Illinois beat themselves, right? Those teams played good in those games, sometimes great in those games, but you did not help yourself. And you had opportunities in those games to make a statement, to make it close. And you couldn't do it, right? So now you have this game against Butler coming up this Saturday. And then you're going to go and you're going to play Detroit Mercy. And then you get back into Big Ten play. This is where you get yourself right. Butler, they're coming off a loss. I believe, again, it was not a great team that they lost to. I can't remember who it was now. North Dakota State. They lost that game to North Dakota State. Before that, they lost that game to Houston. But they got a win against Mississippi State, who was ranked at the time there. So this is a team in Butler who they've rattled off some wins this season. We've seen it. You got to go take care of your business there. You got to get right. Then you take on Detroit Mercy. That's a game you really got to get right before you get into Big Ten play. And then the stretch run. You got your stretch run of Big Ten play, or Big Ten games then. This is your 2 non-conference games you got left there. And then you're going to hopefully righten the ship, get it floating again, get Steven Crowell to start playing like he's 7 foot tall and not like he's a 3 foot guy down there. Have him start playing like he's a big man. Get Klesmit going. Find ways to get your playmakers going, Tonje Blackwell, and maybe start Kamari McGee. I don't know. Right? Maybe Gilmore. Give him some time. Give Gilmore some time. See what happens, right? There's a lot of things right now that the Badgers have beat themselves up doing, and I know Greg Gard knows it. I know that this team knows it, and I've seen, listening to the guys in the locker room, listening to Greg Gard, there's not a whole lot of panic right now in this team. There's not a whole lot of panic. They understand. They know what they're doing wrong. It's just a question of can they fix it, right? And these are 2 games coming up where these are your fix-it games before you start up that Big Ten schedule. And you start out there with Iowa. And Iowa always plays tough. So if you're not the aggressor against Iowa, Iowa will beat you up. So Badgers drop 3 straight. It's rough as of late, but we'll see. We'll see what kind of happens there with the Badgers moving forward there. So good stuff there with the Badgers. Good. I mean, I'm not out on this team is what I want to say. I'm not out on this team. I think they have some potential. Now, do I think they're going to go and win the national championship? I'm not going to put it at that point, right? I think that our expectations coming off of the 8-0 start, we were feeling ourselves, and now we got a gut check. Now we got a reality check, right? Now it's a question of what do they do after that reality check? They've had a 3-game stretch where they got a reality check for a big time, right? And even Greg Gards, he's telling the guys in press conferences now, like, hey, we know what the problem is. Figure it out, right? So we'll see what happens. Butler coming up this weekend. We'll talk about that game on Friday here on the show. We'll preview that Butler game and be hopefully talking about a Badger win there against Butler on Saturday there. So right now, before we move on, I want to get to a little bit of baseball talk today. I want to talk Brewers a little bit there. But before we get there, I want to get to Hunter here. Hunter's got our hockey video for tonight here. He wants to preview, or he wants to recap the weekend. He wants to preview next weekend. So let's get over to Hunter, and then we'll come back here and we'll talk a little Brewer baseball. So we'll see you guys on the other side.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the podcast. Let's dive right into the recent action from the Badgers women's and men's hockey team. Starting with the men's team, it was an exciting weekend at the Kohl Center. On Friday night, the Badgers shut out number 1 Michigan State with a 4-0 victory. Quinn Finley was the star of the night, scoring 2 goals, while netminder Tommy Scarfone made an impressive 26-save shutout to earn his first as a Badger. The Badgers moved into second place in the Big Ten with 14 points in 9 games played. Tyson Dyke opened the scoring 14 minutes and 20 seconds into the first period, and the game remained quiet until Quinn Finley scored on a power play early in the third period. Owen Menlenbacher added to the lead, and Quinley sealed the win with an empty-netted goal. However, Saturday night, what was Joe Pavelski night, saw a different story. Despite having an early 2-0 lead very early on in the second period, the Badgers fell 3-2 in overtime. Even with the loss, Wisconsin managed to get a win to win the series, earning 4 out of the 6 possible points, sharing second place in the Big Ten with 15 points in 10 games played. Now turning to the women's team. The women's hockey team on Friday night played against Minnesota State at Mayo Clinic Health System Event Center. Thanks to goals from reigning WCHA Player of the Week Caroline Harvey and Kristen Sims, the Badgers pulled through on a strong performance. Wisconsin now 18-1. 18-1. All they do is dominate. Losing is just not in their vocab. Only the one time. And I think I'm going to call it a fluke. Got off to a quick start in power play. Less than a minute into the game, Kristen Sims found space behind the net and passed it to Harvey in the high slot, who beat Minnesota State's netminder Haley Hansen on a stick slide. The Badgers maintained their 1-0 lead into the first intermission after killing off a Minnesota State power play. 5 minutes into the second period, Wisconsin extended the lead. Layla Edwards sent a nifty pass to O'Brien, who scored and delivered a cross-ice pass to wide-open Sims, who one-timed it to the back of the net. The Mavericks managed to score on a power play late in the second period, making it 2-0 game heading into the third. The Badgers' defense stood strong, killing off 2 more penalty kills in the third period. Ava McNaughton stopped 23 of 24 shots, securing her 17th win of the season. Then on Saturday afternoon, freshman Maggie Scannell led the team with 2 goals, guiding the number 1 Badgers to a 5-0 shutout win at Minnesota State. For Scannell, it was her second multi-goal game for the Badgers, who now are 20-1 on the year. That's just insane. I'm telling you guys, if you're around Madison or you can get to Madison, especially this weekend because they play number 2 Ohio State. Oh, and before I forget, the Badgers, they go take on number 8 Michigan at Yost. But back to the women's. If you can go to Madison this weekend, it's a potential NCAA championship matchup for the year. Like, go to Lebanon and watch. It's going to be a great weekend of hockey.
There you go. Hunter told you, get down to Madison and check out some hockey there, because great stuff. Great stuff is always from Hunter there. I mean, like he said, all they do is win. All they do is win, and it is impressive. It really is just impressive there. So I wanted to talk a little bit of Brewers today, coming off of they're in winter meetings right now. We see Willie Adames ends up going to the Giants, and we all he's going to be missed. He really is. Willie Adames is going to be missed. Not just, I know we talk about it all the time, the clubhouse presence, right? Clubhouse presence is huge for this team. I mean, that's what makes Brewer baseball. I really do think at times is they don't have the stars, right? They don't have the stars. They don't have, the Aaron Judges or the Shohei Otanis or any of Freddie Freeman, right? Mookie Betts, any of those guys. I just named off 3 guys. They're all on the same team, right? And that's what I want to get into with the Juan Soto thing. But I mean, it's Willie Adames going to the Giants. I love it for him, right? You want to see a guy go out, get what he's worth, get what whatever he's worth in this league, get what he's worth, right? And he did, and he got himself a multi-year deal. It sucks to see him go, right? Because now the Brewers, they have to find a way to replace the home runs. They got to find a way to replace his RBIs, his production, on the field, not just in the clubhouse. You got to find a way to replace that production. And where's it going to come from, right? So you're not going to replace that with Joe Ortiz, because unless if he bulks up in this offseason here, I don't know if Joey Ortiz is going to go off for those, those replacement home runs there, the replacement RBIs. You hope so, right? Same with Bryce Terang. I don't know if Bryce Terang is going to be able to replace that. Fantastic defender, right? Both of them. I think both of them have the ability to be able to slide over to that shortstop spot. But I'm leaving Terang. I'm leaving Terang in second. I would slide Joey Ortiz before that. But I really do think you got to find somebody out there. I don't know how, because you don't have the funds to find somebody out there to replace Willie Adames at third base, right? You're not replacing him position-wise. You're replacing him production-wise. You got to find a way to make up. You're not going to make up all of it, I don't think, but you're going to make up some of it. So that's kind of where I'm looking right now, is where do they go to replace that? There's options out there like Gio Urshela is out there, and you're not going to get Alex Bregman, right? Bregman's not going to be the guy you're going to go out and grab up there. I'm just thinking of other names. I know Alec Boehm's name is now, they were looking at Alec Boehm, right? But now Alec Boehm's name is kind of being taken off the list there. So where do they go? Where do they go for that third base? I don't know if you're going to find it in-house. Can you trust it in-house? Last season it was, let's see if Oliver Dunn can do it. Well, how'd that work, right? Oliver Dunn's not going to be able to replace that production. You're not going to find it there. There's guys within the organization that could do it down the road, but how far is down the road? How long do we have to wait for that production to be there? So I don't think you're going to fix that in-house this season. Rhys Hoskins, maybe he's going to become trade bait. I've seen Devin Williams name up a lot, right, for trades. Devin Williams is going into that final year, and everybody's kind of looking at him and saying, you're probably going to be the guy out. We're not going to pay you, so we're probably going to look to trade you. And I'm not opposed to that, right? I think the biggest strength of this Brewers team is the bullpen, right? You have Uribe, you're going to have Pomp, you're going to have Pagueros out there, you got Trevor McGill, you got pieces in the bullpen, right? But you don't have them in the rotation right now, right? Because right now you're looking at Woody and you're saying right now, Pat Murphy says that Woody is progressing right, which is good. He's progressing right in his rehab, but you can't bank on Woodruff being the guy in there. And Freddie Peralta, he's solid. He's a good pitcher. I'm not saying anything against Freddie. I love Freddie, but Freddie's not an ace. He's not an ace of staff. You're going to have Tobias Myers. And Tobias Myers, I love Tobias Myers. He's a great pitcher, great all-around pitcher, and he had a fantastic season last year. But what are you going to get out of him this year? Right? That's the big question. Savali is going to be in that mix there. You could see a bullpen arm of Jacob Mizorowski at some point. And I'd love to see that. More of, pulling a Corbin Burns kind of route with Mizorowski. And I wouldn't be opposed to that, not throwing him into the rotation right away. See what he can do. Maybe he becomes a closer, right? He's got dominant stuff. Maybe he becomes a closer. You got Craig Yoho down there in the minors. He was having a fantastic year last year. Maybe you see a guy like him. The Brewers have always been, and I've never understood it, right? It baffles me sometimes. But the Brewers have always been great about going out and they find these random guys, right? And bullpen arms. You don't expect those guys to be big name, big production guys for you, but they end up somehow. They end up doing that for you. So the Brewers have always been good at that. Now, that's not my worry, right? My worry is now that Willy Adames is gone, where do we replace that production? And that's what we're going to have to see. That's what we're waiting to see. So what moves will they make, right? And I think that Devin Williams trade, as much as I've liked Devin and as much as Devin has shown that he can do, right? Not in the postseason. I know, sadly, not in the postseason, but in the regular season, this guy, when he's on, he's a dominant closer, right? When he's off, he's off. But when he's on, he's a dominant closer. But if you can get something for him, and I know the Dodgers are looking at him, go and get the Dodgers, get some top prospects, get some, not top prospects, right? You're not going to unload the Dodgers farm system with this one, but get some prospects out of this one, some good prospects, right? Maybe a pitching prospect. Maybe you go and you grab an infield prospect. We don't need any more outfielders. For the love of Pete, we don't need more outfielders right now. Maybe an outfielder. I don't know. What do you guys think out there in the comment section? If you guys are, in tune to the comment section, but what do you guys think? Do you look at trading an outfielder, right? Garrett Mitchell. I've heard his name a lot. I'd hate to see Mitchell go just because I think Mitchell's got the most upside. Outside of Jackson Churriel, don't get me wrong. Outside of Jackson Churriel, I think Jackson Churriel's got the most upside out of all the young outfielders, right? But out of like Mitchell, Frelick, Perkins, those are going to be your guys that you're kind of looking at where those guys could be the guys where you're looking at trading, right? I love Sal. Sal's he's going to give you his all every single day in the outfield. So I'm not saying to trade Sal, but I'd hate to see Mitchell go because we haven't seen the full display of what Mitchell can do. He's got great power. He's got great speed, and he's got a good glove in the outfield, right? We haven't seen it because he's always been injured. So I would hate to see Mitchell go. But if you need to add depth, where can you move pieces from? I think Christian Yelich right now, to me, Christian Yelich, I mean, I'm hoping he comes back completely healthy. I'm hoping that the back, the surgery is going to help him and he's going to look good there. But you got to look, if you're the Brewers, you got to look at moving a piece, right? You got to look at moving pieces there because you're not going to be able to go out and grab free agents free willy-nilly like you hope, right? That's what you hope. And I want to talk about that here in a second, but that's what you hope is that you can go out and grab guys, but you don't have the capital for that. So where are you going to move pieces to find pieces? And that's where I'm looking is kind of Devin Williams and that outfield depth to see what you're going to do there. John's in the comments there. John, quack. He's always with that Oregon crap there. He said he had to there, but thoughts on Max Fried to New York and another team. What is the Mets doing with what the heck? LOL reminds me of the Vanilla contract. You know what? And that's where I wanted to get today. That's what I wanted to talk about. I honestly, John, I hate the Juan Soto deal. I do. I hate it. First off, I don't feel like Juan Soto is actually worth that. I don't. If you want to ask me plain and simple, like Shohei Ohtani got a massive contract. Why? Shohei Ohtani, when he's pitching, he's a fantastic pitcher. When he's hitting, he's a we saw it. 50-50, right? We saw it. He's a fantastic hitter. Juan Soto, what are you getting from Juan Soto? He's a fantastic hitter, right? He's going to give you home runs. He's going to give you RBIs. He's going to give you production. But you're paying a guy to hit. You're not paying a guy to play the field. His glove is subpar. He's not a great outfielder. So what are you getting out of him? You're getting a bat. Right. And a bat's good. Right. But that contract's crazy. And that's where I wanted to get today. I see that something like that. This crazy deal. Right. And it's going to turn into a vanilla contract. I guarantee it. We're going to have a day for Juan Soto, just like we have a Bobby Vanilla day. We're going to have a day for Juan Soto. But when I look at this deal, it makes me sick because it's like, okay, you look at some of your lower end teams, right? The Brewers are one of them. The Royals are in there. You have a couple other ones. What are the Brewers supposed to do, right? You went in this offseason, they're like, oh yeah, lots of teams have their names in the ring for this one, for Juan Soto. BS. Who has their name in there? The whole time that we were waiting for this answer, right? Because the biggest answer of the offseason was, where is Juan Soto going to go? That's what we were all worried about. We were all waiting for. Where's Juan Soto going to go? We knew the names: the Mets, the Dodgers, the Yankees. right? Those were the names. Those were the 3 teams where you were looking at and you were saying, there's the teams who can pay the top dollar amount for this guy. That was it. And actually, Kyle and Aaron and I, we boiled it down to 2 teams. We said the Yankees and Mets. Those are gonna be 2 ones. Those are gonna be the 2 teams right there who are gonna try the hardest and they were gonna throw the most money out there. And the Mets did it. And they threw this craptastic deal out there. What are the Brewers supposed to do? I'm not saying this as like, oh, poor me, right? Poor me. Poor me as a Brewer fan. And what are we supposed to do? Okay, Mark Ananasio, spend more money. Mark Ananasio isn't worth as much as that contract is worth. So what is Mark Ananasio supposed to do, right? He can't throw that money out there. He can't. You can't. As a Brewer team, you can't even look at him. You can't even look at these guys. And that's what I think is the most disgusting part about the game today. I really do, is these contracts. I hate them. I really do. And I know everybody's got their own opinion on that. And I'd love to hear you guys' opinion on that. But I hate these contracts because you look at them. First off, this Juan Soto deal. I mean, what if Juan Soto goes and he has some crazy injury, right? And you banked him up for all these years. And I think there is an option after it's in the short term. But, I mean, this guy, it's ridiculous. And you look at a Brewers team. You can't even look at these guys. You, like, every single season, right? You almost wish that you could go into the offseason and you are like a fan of the Brewers or you're a fan of the Royals, or you're a fan of one of these other teams, right? And you wish you could look at the free agent pool and say, we could go after this guy, but we can't go after anybody else, right? We could go after, we're looking at the top 10, right? We're like, we could go after these guys. Maybe not get them, right? Because somebody else is going to throw a little bit more money down. But we still have that option too. There's no option. There is no option for some of these teams to even look at these guys. And look at the Dodgers. Look at the Mets. They're probably not even done yet. Look at the Yankees, what they're able to do. I mean, Yankees make stupid contracts, right? You look at the Yankees, Anthony Rizzo and DJ LeMahieu, and they're grabbing Josh Donaldson, and they're grabbing all these old guys. I mean, the Yankees they're terrible at making decisions. They need a GM in there that can actually comprehend, right? And that's where, honestly, I was actually happy for David Stearns going out to the Mets because, like, this guy, look what he did with the Brewers with absolutely no money at all. Now imagine what he can do with money, right? And well, his first deal that he gets to make with the Mets is this big old deal for Juan Soto, like the big one, right? The first big deal he gets to be in is the one for Juan Soto, and that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. I don't like these contracts. I don't. And you know what? Everybody can have their own opinion on it. They can argue with me and tell me that, it's how it works and everything like that. There needs to be a salary cap. There needs to be some kind of cap. Honestly, well, I don't know. You know what I heard? I think it was on the Bill Michaels show today. I heard him talking about it too, and he said something about a limit to the years too, right? Because these years are ridiculous, right? Juan Soto, the years are ridiculous. You look at the Shohei Ohtani contracts. These contracts are taking them up into their 40s. Like, this is ridiculous. I think there needs to be a year mark. I like that idea. I like the idea of a year mark, but there has to be some kind of cap. There has to be. And I don't know what it's going to take because it's hard to just, what are you going to do? Go into the players union and say, you guys need to take less money. Good luck, right? What are they going to say? No. Why would we take less money, right? Why would we take less money? We want our money. We think we're worth this. What guy is worth the Juan Soto contract? Seriously. What guy is worth that kind of money? I don't know, right? I mean, you think of the grand scheme of things. So you're playing the game of baseball. Like, it's grueling, I guess, on your body. But $765 million? $765 million? You're telling me that Juan Soto is worth that? 15 years? I believe there was an opt-out. There's no deferred money. There's an opt-out. There's an opt-out in there somewhere. Where the heck was it? There's an opt-out. It's going to add an addition of $4 million per season to the final 10 years of the contract. So there's a lot of cash being thrown around right now. It almost ruins the game of baseball. It does. You create super teams, and I know every once in a while you're going to have, a spark of a year, right? The Diamondbacks will go to the World Series, or you're going to have some kind of World Series like that where this lesser roster, and we're hoping the Brewers do it, right? Maybe with this young cast of characters they got in there, right? Jackson Chourio takes off next year, and Yelich comes back healthy, and Woodruff comes back and he pitches well, and you bring up some guys out of the minors and they start pitching well, and you get all these pieces together and everything starts working. Maybe you put on a run, right? But how long can you sustain that kind of run? Because once those contracts are ready to come up and those guys need their money too, they're gone, right? So the Brewers have to operate it as a guessing game, right? Jackson Chourio, what if he ended up stinking, right? What if he ended up stinking? They gave him this bigger contract, right? What if he ended up stinking? Then you're kind of at a loss and you just have to eat it, right? We can afford a Christian Yelich contract or a Ryan Braun contract, but you can't afford more than one. You can't afford more than one star player to be there, right? And you can have star rookie players or young players, but once those contracts are up, they're out the door. And then you have to start over, and then you have to rebuild them because those guys are going to the Dodgers. Those guys are going to, the Yankees or the Astros or wherever it is, teams that can afford to spend that kind of money. And the Brewers can't. They can't. And I hear it all the time. And everybody looks at the numbers and they're like, well, we should be able to spend some kind of money. We should be able to spend some kind of money. Yeah, we can spend some kind of money. And sometimes I do think we take the cheap way out. I do, but end of the day, you have to pay for the little things inside of a stadium. Your owner's still going to pocket money. He's not going to lose money in the whole system. You wish that he would, right? But that's the problem. That's why I talked about, a while back, and I've heard a lot of people talk about it, is investors. Getting investors into the Brewers, whether it's call up John Menard in Wisconsin here and say, hey, dude, you want to be an investor in the Brewers? You want to, throw some money in here and be a part-time owner or whatever it is? Don't ask them if they want to be an owner, right? But ask them, say, hey, do you want to be in on getting this guy, right? And help out the Brewers and all those kinds of things. It doesn't have to be an owner, just an investor, a guy who's going to invest in a player, right? You almost have to get to that because I wish that we were sitting here and we were like, I wish Rob Manfred would come out and say, instead of the golden bat rule, this doorknob, he'd come out and say, well, we're in talks with the players union and trying to get some kind of control over the contracts. And I'd be like, great, fantastic. And I'm not asking all these guys to lose their contracts that they have now. Like, I've heard people say, like, grandfather them in, right? Get the, Juan Soto deal. It's already done. You can't ask them to take away money. So keep that contract. But now we put some kind of cap in where you cannot spend over this. You can't spend over this. You have to hit that and maybe put a floor in there too. You put a floor, you put a cap, that makes a competitive league. Why? Because now teams can't sandbag it, right? They can't just sit there on the bottom and not have anybody. They got to still go spend money to make a competitive league. Right now, what we have is, we have the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Mets throwing money around. And then we have these other teams who are like, well, Wade Miley's only 44 years old. Maybe we can go get Wade Miley, right? Maybe he can be a number 5 starter in a rotation. Like that's where the Brewers are at. So I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of that contract. I do like the Max Fried to New York, though. Max Fried, I've always liked him. He's never been over the top, but he's been a solid and at times great pitcher. So I like John. I like that Max Fried to the Yankees there. I think that was a good move for them. I think he's going to help bolster that rotation a little bit there. And I'm excited for him. He got his money, right? We're talking about money here. He got his money. And one of the biggest, I believe it's the biggest contract for a left-handed starter. If I'm not mistaken, it's one of the, if not the biggest contract for a left-handed starter there and longest term, I believe. So, good for him. Good for him. He proved it a little bit there down with the Braves, and now he's getting his money up there in New York. So good for him. Hopefully he has some good success up there. But Crochet's off the board now. I did see the Brewers ranked to Crochet. He's off the board now. He's going to the Red Sox there. If you're the Brewers right now, I feel like you got to be diving into that third base market because I don't think you're going to find a shortstop out there in the market that you're going to replace unless you get Hung Sung Kim. But I feel like right now, after Willy Adames, the domino of Willy Adames fell, now his name is kind of getting hotter there. So we'll kind of see where the Brewers kind of lean towards. Pat Murphy kind of said that the Brewers are not going to spend a lot. They're not going to spend a lot. They don't have a lot of money to spend. So we'll see if it's in-house too. Whatever they come up with, right? It's kind of where we are with the Brewers. But I listened to Pat Murphy. He believe he was on MLB Network. He was talking to some of the guys, and If there's a guy that I want to be the manager of a team with, I mean, the talent and everything that we got and the young guys, that's the guy. Like I love listening to him talk, hearing him. He was well deserved NL Manager of the Year, like well deserved. I think Craig Counsell should have won one way back, but well deserved Manager of the Year. And hopefully, right? Hopefully, coming into this next season here, we get him some pieces. We put together a team, and I mean, right now I think the Brewers are still. I know the Cubs are going to add, right? The Cubs are going to add some pieces. The Cardinals, they're kind of trying to unload right now. I've heard people calling that would be an interesting one. I don't know. What would you guys think out there of the Brewers? Nolan Arenado. Could you somehow entice a deal to the Cardinals? It's in division; those don't happen very often. But could you entice a deal to the Cardinals to get Nolan Arenado? I don't know. It would take a heck of a package, right? It would take a heck of a package. But I mean, Nolan Arenado's name's been out there in the trade market. So Cardinals are kind of unloading. The Pirates, they're making moves, but you never really know with the Pirates. They kind of fizzle out. The Reds, I mean, the Reds always seem to start hot and then they fall apart. And the Cubs, what are the Cubs going to do, right? Craig Counsell, he knows. He said it last season there. He said the Brewers are the team to beat right now. They're the top. We got to get to that, right? So the Brewers right now, I still feel like they're the best team in the NL Central, but I don't know. Last season, they had a lot of things go right? You know, double steal, whatever it was. They had a lot of things go right for them last season, and that's what got them to that, a boatload of wins. What's it going to look like this season now, right? We'll see. We'll see there. You got hopefully a healthy Christian Yelich. You got hopefully a healthy Brandon Woodruff, right? So we'll see what kind of happens with this team there. So I like where the Brewers are at. If they add a piece or two, I'd be okay with it. But we'll see what this Brewers team does moving forward there. So good stuff there. Brewers, I mean, winter meetings have been happening. We'll see kind of if the Brewers are in the noise. If they start making some noise here pretty soon, maybe make an under the radar move, right? That's always what it is. The Brewers don't make the above the radar move. It's always an under the radar, like bottom of the ocean kind of move there. And sometimes it actually hits. So we'll see what this Brewers team does moving forward there. But let's talk a little bit of Packers here. They got Seattle coming up this weekend here. Yeah, it's going to be like Matt LaFleur said, it could be a playoff atmosphere there. Seattle's in a prove it time, right? They're in a prove it time. They haven't proved it up until this point here. You look at this team, I believe they're still up top of that NFC West at the moment. But they still, I mean, you have the Rams chasing you. You're right now 8-5. The Rams sitting at 7-6, the Cardinals 6-7, and then you have the 49ers sitting there at 6-7. But Seattle has kind of been right now. They're on a 4-game win streak. Before that, they were struggling. They're a back and forth team right now, and they want to prove it against one of the better teams in the NFC right now, as they view it, and a lot of people view it, is the Packers are one of the better teams in the NFC. The NFC North is fantastic this season, and Seattle, they're coming into this game and they're like, we got to prove it. We got to prove that we are who we are and that we can be a legit, playoff team. So the Packers going on the road in this one, into this environment, the 12th man, right? We always talk about the 12th man out there in Seattle. This is going to be one of those games. I feel like this is going to be a tough game. You look at them and you're like, 8-5. They haven't been overly impressive. Geno Smith, he's passed for a lot of yards here on the season, but nothing really crazy about him. This is a solid team. And if you they have a very underappreciated, not really thought about wide receiver core, right? DK Metcalf, Lockett, and Smith Njigba out there. I mean, they have a good receiver core. And right now, the Packers secondary is the biggest question mark we got. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Jair did practice on today, Wednesday. So that's good signs for that secondary portion there. Edgerrin Cooper, I was limited at practice. Javian Bullard did not practice. He's got that ankle injury. We don't know the extent of that yet. Luke Musgrave was limited. He's back at practice, limited there with that ankle. Josh Myers was back. Evan Williams was limited at practice. He's got concussion, but he's limited at practice. We'll see what happens there. I believe he's in protocol. But, I mean, Romeo Doubs, he had a full practice day. His injury was, he was in the concussion protocol. I was kind of worried about him because he'd been in the concussion protocol for a while there. Now he's back at practice. So hopefully good signs there. Getting a guy like Alexander back. Hopefully Ballantyne too, because Corey Ballantyne, I feel like I'd rather have him out there than Eric Stokes, right? I'd rather have anybody out there than Eric Stokes at this point. Kalen King, give that rookie some time. Give somebody else some time, right? Give somebody else some time. So the Packers heading into this hostile environment, this is going to be, I believe it's going to be a hostile environment. It's going to be a good game. I really do think this is going to be one of those playoff type atmospheres. And I seen a lot of people across social media and they're like, well, do you go into this game and not really try and win it, but try and win it, right? Don't show your hand. No, you go and win this football game. Just win this football game. I don't know why people think that you can just flip a switch and turn it on and turn it off. But the one thing I want to see from this Packers team is them get hot. They haven't gotten hot. They haven't played complimentary football at all. Cardinals game, right? Outside of that, when have we seen complimentary football from this team? Both sides of the ball, all game long, right? Offense stays consistent. Defense is consistent. It just looks good. When have we seen it? We haven't. We got to get hot going into this Packers team has got to get hot going into the playoffs. They have to. Losing games now, not showing your hand, all those things. No. Like, are there teams I would probably rather face in the playoffs than not face in the playoffs? Sure, right? I don't know if I want to play the Rams right now. I don't know if I want to play the Rams because honestly, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, this team's, but that team, we saw it against the Bills. I mean, that game was ridiculous against the Bills there. They can sling the football. And you look at the Packers and you're like, where's their weakness? Well, the secondary. So now the run defense has been better as of late here. So where are you looking? You're looking at the secondary and you're saying, man, they can just throw the ball around on you guys, right? Look at the Lions game. Look at weeks before. The secondary has been a problem, and we knew it was a problem. And if you want to blame Brian Gutekunst for anything, blame him going into a season with even just look at the NFC North, right? Just look at the NFC North. And you say to yourself, you have the Vikings, right? Justin Jefferson and Addison out there, right? And you look at, let's go to the Bears, right? And yes, the Bears have been a cluster. I mean, they've just been a mess. But you look at the Bears, Keenan Allen and DJ Moore and Roma Dunze, right? You got a pretty good receiver core there. You look at the Lions there. You have Jamison Williams. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? And you went into a season and you're like, well, we got Eric Stokes. We got Corey Ballant. We got Valentine, right? We have Jair Alexander whenever he's there, right? How do you went through the draft like that, and you got guys late rounds, right? You went into the draft like that. You went into the season like that, and then you passed free agency, and you still didn't go out and say, maybe we should just get a corner. I don't care who it is, right? We saw, a lot of people talking about like Greg Newsome from the Browns, right? We saw Greg Newsome, and it's like, why not try to make a deal? Why not try and make that deal? Try to get him, right? Try to get somebody, some help in there in that cornerback room, in that secondary. And nothing. No action. If you want to blame Brian Gutekunst for anything, blame him for that. That's what I would blame for, is that you don't have playmakers out there. You don't. Like, we can blame the linebackers, right? We always want to get on Quay Walker's case. And Isaiah McDuffie, Isaiah McDuffie is not good in pass coverage. We know that. Good at run. He's good in the run defense, but he's not good in pass coverage there. Quay Walker usually is the opposite. He's been playing better as of late here on run defense there, but I mean, he's usually the opposite. He's pretty good in coverage, but he's not so good in the run defense. But he's been playing better, like I said. Defensive line, you've had problems all season long getting consistent pressure, right? Rashawn Gary, one day is there, one day is not, right? One day is there, one day is not. And that's the biggest thing. My biggest question. Are the Packers actually legit Super Bowl contenders? Like, could they do it? Could they do it? I don't know. Offensively, I think they got playmakers. I think Jordan Love, I saw things out of Jordan Love against the Lions, mobility-wise, stepping up in the pocket, making good decisions, and he's been making better decisions as of late. I like what I'm seeing out of the offense. I think at times Matt LaFleur gets ahead of himself. I think he tries to do too much trickery. I think he's got to find more ways to get Jaden Reed involved in it. But outside of that, I mean, I like the offense. I just look at the defense. It's like, where are you going to get consistent pressure from? Rashawn Gary hasn't been that guy. Lucas Van Ness is iffy. One game he shows up, and the next game he's gone, right? You look across there, Aaron Mosby, you've had troubles with him. I mean, you just look across that Kenny Clark. I mean, Devontae Wyatt, I thought he was going to be a game wrecker this season, and some days he's there, some days he's not. Kenny Clark, I mean, They look better in the run defense this last one, but it's getting pressure. It's putting pressure on a quarterback. The question is, can you bring 4 and still get pressure, right? Do you always have to bring 6 guys to get pressure on a quarterback? Because if you have to do that, you leave yourself exposed. Because if you're going to do that and you have a secondary like you do, it's not going to be it's not a good combination. It's not, the ingredients aren't there to create a winning football, right? And you look at teams over the years getting to the Super Bowl, being a Super Bowl team. The defense, right? The defense is a big part of that. The Lions just balled out against the Packers. I mean, the first couple drives there, they were playing with the defensive line of question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. Who the heck are they, right? And they're making consistent pressure on Jordan Love. And they're getting stops. And they're putting pressure in his face. And they're disrupting the plays. And they're disrupting play calling. And everything in between. That was with no-name guys, right? The Eagles, that defensive front's been playing better. That secondary's been playing a lot better. The Eagles have a good defense. Packers, could they? Yeah, I think they could. I really do think that the Packers, you're looking at key moments, right? Key stops in those games. Can Rashawn Gary get pressure on a quarterback in a game? That could change a game, right? Jair Alexander just being there, that could change a game, right? Not having Eric Stokes on the field, that could change a game, right? Quay Walker making big time plays, not just in the run game, but also rushing the quarterback like he's been doing as of late. That could change games. You got to have game changers on a defense. Right now, I don't, outside of Xavier McKinney, let's exclude Xavier McKinney because he's been a game changer for the Packers. And Keyshawn Nixon has played a lot better. So I don't want to say that, everybody on this defense has just been playing bad or has played bad. Keyshawn Nixon has been playing a lot better. And he's been put into tougher situations, right? Because Jair's been out and because of all the injuries, right? Javian Bullard gets injured and a lot of these guys get injured on this defense here. And he's been put into some tough spots. And Keyshawn Nixon has played better, right? I'm not saying he's an all-pro. I'm not saying that any of that. I'm saying that he has played a lot better as of late. So we do have a Detroit Lions fan in here. Going good in here. Thoughts on the Packers? Like, if you got some thoughts on the Packers, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Packers there. Detroit Lions fan there over on Twitch. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Green Bay Packers. You guys, we just saw you guys, and I mean, it was a hard-fought game. And I mean, Dan Campbell, like we saw, he's got some of the biggest balls out there. Like, when it works, it works, and when it doesn't work, you get yelled at and you get, kind of criticized about it. But in that game, I mean, fourth and goal, couple times, able to make big plays, and the Packers just weren't able to get that stop, right? So that's what I'm talking about with the defense. There is this defense has got to find ways to have those big moments, those big plays, right? And yes. Can you at least agree Goff wasn't down if you know the rules? Yes. I saw a lot of people after that game, and they're all like, you got to know the rules here and the rules. They're looking up the rules and everything like that. And it's like, he wasn't down. Like, okay, let's understand the rules. We can look at the rules. We're reading the rules and what they were bringing up. I'm like, oh yeah, what you're reading makes sense with what your context is, what you're trying to say, but it's not. No, he was not down. He was not down, and by any means. So yes, I can agree with you there on that one. There, Goff. I've honestly said, with Jared Goff that Jared Goff should be in the MVP conversation. I don't understand why he's not. I don't. Like, we look at who has led to success of teams. And Jared Goff, he's had his moments, right? That game against the Texans, it almost seems like that was a fluke because you look at his line without that game there, and the interceptions are low, right? And he's been doing just about everything. He's consistent. And he has been a big reason why this team is where they are. He makes the big time throws. And those big time throws, and it's not just the big time throws. He makes the right reads, right? And he doesn't fall for the pressure. And it's those little things, right? I've loved what I've seen out of Jared Goff there. So, I mean, hats off to him so far. Watch that Rams 49ers game. I'm going to watch it there. I'm honest with you right now. I like the Rams. I think the Rams are A very scary team. I don't care if you're the Lions, if you're the Eagles, the Packers, the Vikings. I don't care who you are. The Rams are a scary team. With Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, this is going back to Detroit Lions there. Matt Stafford, he can still ball it, man. He can still throw a good football. And with those kinds of weapons that he's been working with right now, they've been getting the run game going. The defense has been playing a little bit better there. I like what they've been doing on the defensive side of the football, and they have a pretty good head coach there, John McVay. I would not want to see the Rams in the playoffs. I wouldn't. I would not even in the slightest. Like if they win that West, that they come from behind Seattle there and win that West, I would be okay if we gotta somehow get up to that 5 and not have to go see them or anything like that. Like the last thing I want is to see them stinking Rams, because we saw them at one point this season, and yes, the Packers beat them, but I believe Nacua was out for that game, and I believe if Kupp wasn't out for that game, I believe he was, right? So I'd be okay with not seeing them in the playoffs there. That is a dangerous team. That is a very dangerous team right now. So I mean, just getting to the Packers a little bit there, getting a little off script, but getting back to the Packers. The biggest thing for me with this Packers team, and this is what I love about the Lions. At times, I think it gets kind of crazy at times, but what I love about the Lions is they come out and the Lions are the aggressor. Every single game when they come out on that field, they are the aggressor. They get after you. And that's what I just mentioned before there. They had a front four the other night. I mean, Zadarius Smith was in there, but they don't have no Aiden Hutchinson. They're missing all these guys on that defense. I mean, if they had that entire defense, you look at that injury report, if the Lions had that defense right now, that would be one of the best, if not the best defense in all of football. Like that, it would be hard to move the football against that team. And they did things against the Packers early on there where I was like, who are these guys? I don't even know half the guys who are on this defense right now. I don't even know them. And they're out here balling out like they're all pro. Like they've been there, done that. Like they come out and they're the aggressor every single game. And the Packers, they just don't move that needle for me. And that's one of my biggest problems is that the Packers aren't that aggressor. They don't come out firing. They don't come out firing. They don't come out like they want to stomp on you. They don't come out with the first punch. And if they do, they kind of lay back and they just relax. And then they're playing this scramble mode where they're trying to just go swing for swing. They got to come out and be the aggressor here. They got to come out and be the aggressor, and they got to put it on them, right? That's something we haven't seen either. They haven't put it on teams. They haven't put it on them. I mean, they've played a lot of games close, right? I mean, the Bears game, that was a close game. The Bears played well in that one, but close game. They put it on the 49ers, but how much do you really... I don't want to discredit the 49ers. I don't want to discredit the Packers win against the 49ers. But I thought there were still things in that 49ers game where I was looking at and saying, this team has still not put it all together. And then even the Dolphins game, 30-17, I was like, this still doesn't look like this team is playing to their full potential. And I think there's a lot of potential with this team. I really do. I just haven't seen it. I haven't seen it in full form yet, right? And against the Lions, they played a great game. I thought the Packers played a good game. What I went back to was, number one, getting those key stops, right? Fourth down, getting those key stops. They couldn't do it. We saw it. They got one, but when it mattered, right? Fourth and goals, right? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Lions have got like 4 touchdowns on fourth and goals against the Packers. Like, that's ridiculous, first off. So you got those numbers. And then, I mean, you just look at the slow start for Green Bay. They didn't come out. They weren't the aggressor. They knew what the Lions wanted to do. They wanted to make them throw the football. And right away, they came out and they're like, all right, let's sling this baby around. Let's play it. Let's do it. The offensive line didn't come out aggressive, right, in that game. And that's where I'm leading with this team right now is, at some point, you got to come out and you got to be the aggressor. You have to be the top dog, right? And right now, they aren't playing like that. They aren't. And I get back to the point where I don't understand why we're running so much shotgun. Why are we running so much shotgun and pistol crap? Look at Jared Goff. Look at Jared Goff when he goes underneath the center. And I could be mistaken, but I believe Jared Goff has the most yards when going under center or in play action this season here. But he's so good at selling a fake. And Jordan Love is good at selling the fake too, right? He's good at hiding it. He's good at selling that fake. And he's got the ability that you don't know if he's going to take off and run. He's got the athletic ability to take off and run. He's got that throwing ability there. Get him under center and let him be that guy for you. And I mean, you want to get the run game going? Give Josh Jacobs a full head of steam when he hits the line. I don't, between Badger football this season and between the Packers, you almost feel bad for the running backs. You're like, line up under center, give him time to get, a 3-yard, whatever it is, head start there, coming downhill, full head of steam, get the football, hit the line, and burrow a hole through there. But we run all this crap in all this stinking, shotgun and pistol crap. You're not going to get those actions. You're not going to get that. So that's one of my problems too. I hate that the Packers, they seem like they're so, if Jordan Love's still hurt, I don't want to say I understand it, but I get it, right? He doesn't have that mobility to come from under center and still be able to, set up the play action, whatever it is, set it up. I get that. But the way I'm seeing it, he's not injured. He's not playing injured right now. So why is it still so much shotgun, so much pistol? Nobody's asked that question there. Nobody's asked that question. And it eeks me. It hurts. It just irritates me. It irritates me to see that. The Lions, the success of that offense, they run a little bit of shotgun. Not going to say they don't run a little bit of shotgun there, but a majority of the time, Jared Goff's under center. And it gives Jahmyr Gibbs, it gives David Montgomery, it gives them time to get downhill, to make that move. And those two, they come through the hole like a freaking cannon, right? And I'm not saying Josh Jacobs doesn't come through the hole like a cannon, but you run in shotgun, he gets the handoff there. Now he's got okay, right? He doesn't have that momentum getting him forward. There's a lot of, I wouldn't say question marks, a lot of question marks that I'm having, I guess, with this team. And why? The whys. The why. Why are you doing it this way? And nobody's asked that question. I really wish somebody would. I really wish somebody would ask Matt LaFleur, hey, why are you running so much out of shotgun? Why? Why are you doing that? And I want to hear his answer, but nobody's asked that question yet there. So, last but not least, a lot of fans are saying to get rid of LaFleur at this point here. They're like, LaFleur can't take us over that hump. He's got all these things wrong with him, everything like that, and we're not getting rid of LaFleur. I know, yes, he's got a bad record against Dan Campbell. I see that. I understand that. And I do feel like Dan Campbell, he gets into those games and he coaches ballsy, right? That Detroit Lions fan there in the comment section there over on Twitch. That. I know that, right? One of those 4th and goals doesn't go the Lions' way. We're talking about a different outcome, right? That 4th and inches. He could have kicked the field goal. He didn't kick it. He's like, I know that I cannot give this ball back to Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur because those two, they're humming. They can make plays. They can get down the field. We don't want to get in that situation, right? So we went for it. And if it didn't work, well, we're scrutinizing and we're like, Dan Campbell's a doorknob, right? But we're not saying that. Nobody is. But why? Because it worked. And sometimes it works. Sometimes it gets the job done. And you cannot criticize him. You can't criticize Dan Campbell in those moments, in the moments that it works, or the moments that it doesn't work. Because in the moments that it works, everybody, those same people, are like, wow, he's so smart. He's so smart. I would go for it too. We got an offensive coordinator like the Lions do. I'd go for it too every time. I'd go for it too. When you're 4th and 2, I know that he can draw up a play. I am absolutely fascinated watching that team, not just on offense, but on defense too. The Lions have two great coordinators. Ben Johnson is fantastic. I love what they have there. And if I had coordinators like that, I would have my utmost faith that if I go for it on this 4th and 2 like they did, and I don't get it, well, I know my defense can get a stop. I know they can. And the Packers, they went down, they got stopped on that 4th and 2 and ended up scoring. But you have that confidence. And I like that confidence. You're showing confidence in not just your coordinators, but you're showing confidence in your team. And that's what, a great leader, right? And Matt LaFleur, you're not firing him after this season, right? But you're kind of looking at next season, right? Maybe I don't think the seat's hot. I don't, but maybe it gets hot, right? If he can't take you over that hump, if you feel like there's things wrong. But I'm looking at this team and I'm saying, defensively, did you get yourself good enough to be what you could be? I don't think so. I think you could have added a cornerback. I think you could have went and got help in that secondary. You didn't get help, right? You didn't get help in there. You look at injuries this season. I mean, you're looking at injuries, right? Because we talk about Jordan Love, and a lot of people are like, "Well, what does that have to do with anything? You still won those games. Malik Willis played fine. He got the wins. Yeah, he did." But you're derailing the progress of the team at that point because you want them, the progress of Jordan Love, the progress of different players out there. Because when the Packers were winning those games, they weren't throwing the ball a lot. They weren't running those, those different play calls that you could with Jordan Love because Malik Willis was not. I'm not saying he isn't able to do that or at some point there, right? But Malik Willis doesn't have the same capabilities of what you were going to get out of a guy like Jordan Love. So you kind of derailed where your season was heading because you look at the first couple games there of a regular season for a football team. I mean, for your starters, this is why I don't like the preseason. Or I shouldn't say I don't like the preseason. I think starters should play more in the preseason because you get to playoff time or not playoff time, but regular season. And, your starters are still technically in the preseason yet. They're still working themselves in the preseason. So you're not blaming this on Matt LaFleur. You're not saying that Matt LaFleur is getting fired after this season, but next season, I mean, if you see problems, right? Same problems arise. You don't think that he's the right leader, the guy that can get this team over the top. You're going to have a new not GM in there, but you're going to have a new leader in there. I mean, maybe, just maybe, then you think about moving on. I don't know. I'm not in that boat of moving on from Matt LaFleur. I think Matt LaFleur is a great play caller. A lot of people respect him as a play caller. It's just about rallying up the troops now, right? And you got this this stretch here of games. You got the Seahawks, then the Saints, right? I want to see the Packers go into Seattle and play that Saints team at home. And I want to see the Packers put some games together, put some complete games together. Come out and be the aggressor, right? These last 4 games, the Seahawks, the Saints, the Vikings, and the Bears. You got to come out and be the aggressor. Get hot going into the playoffs. Because, Lions fans know it. We know it. We can go into Detroit and win that game. We can. We know we can, right? You need the little things to go right. You got to play not perfect, but almost, right? You got to play a complete game. You got to put it all together. You got to play complementary football. Maybe you need a thing to go your way, right? In that Lions game in Detroit there, Keyshawn Nixon had that big interception on Jared Goff. That was a big play, right? That was a big moment in that game. You got to have big moments, right? You got to have big moments in those. And Jair Alexander wasn't there, right? So that doesn't help at all, right? Doesn't help at all. You don't have Edgerrin Cooper. Evan Williams gets banged up. Bullard goes down with injury. There's a lot of problems that led to that, right? And I'm not saying Lions were banged up completely going into that game. I completely understand that. They were banged up too. But when you lose some of those, you have those key pieces that you're missing if you're Green Bay and you already have a defense that's struggling. Well, that doesn't help at all. So, we're not firing guys left and right here. We're not going free willy-nilly on it here. We'll see. Well, these last 4 games are big, right? Get hot going into the playoffs. When you get into the playoffs, then you're going to be on the road for the entire thing. It's happened before, right? The last time a team went on the road for the entire playoffs and ended up in the Super Bowl, you're Green Bay Packers. So is it possible? Yes, sir. It is definitely possible. And you can set up games where you're going to end up having to, if you're going to make a playoff run, right? You're going to have to go to whether it's Seattle or the Rams. You're going to end up there. Maybe it's Tampa, right? Maybe you go down Tampa, and then you're going to have whether you got to go to the Eagles, right? You're going to have the Eagles after that, most likely. Or if you end up as the 5, you end up going to the Lions then, and then you'd end up in Philadelphia after that. So it's not like it's going to be easy, but it's not impossible, right? It's just, does this team have enough? right? Does this team have enough? And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that as, the week goes on here. We're going to get into it on Friday here on the show. So we did have one more. Detroit fans, thank you for the follow there over on Twitch. Awesome to see you in the comments there. And I mean, hey, the Lions, you got to love what you see. You got to love what you see out of your Lions team right now. I mean, they're doing it without a lot of the cornerstones, right? Aiden Hutchinson, I thought, honestly, when he went down, I was not worried because I was like, yes, great for the Packers, right? But I was honestly like, maybe he's a leader. He's one of them guys, right? He's a leader in that locker room. I was like, a leader on the defense. He's a big player. I was like, man, maybe this is going to hurt him. Maybe it's going to hurt that defense. They didn't skip a beat. Man. And can you imagine if he was still out there? Can you imagine if they still had, like I said before, some of these other pieces out there? Like, wow, this would be a dangerous, really. I mean, they're a dangerous team. Don't get me wrong. This is a great team. This is a great team in the Lions, right? But wow, if you had them pieces, crazy, just crazy to think where the Lions could be if they didn't have all them injuries to that team right now. So, I mean, wow, yeah, just thinking about that. But so Badgers take the loss. We're going to talk more about the Badgers on Friday here on the show as we get into our weekend preview there, that game with Butler. We want to talk more about the Packers as they prepare for that Sunday night game with Seattle. Hopefully the injury report stays good for the Packers, right? I mean, we're looking at the injury report. Hopefully Adrian Cooper is going to be good to go. Hopefully, right? Maybe Romeo Dobbs is going to be back there. Jair Alexander, it's always a hope, right? It's a hope on one hand, and well, it's crap in the other. So we'll see what kind of happens there with Jair, but the injury report, hopefully it stays well for the Packers. We're going to talk about them on Friday, getting into that Seattle game. We're going to talk Bucks basketball on Friday here on the show. Hopefully Kyle is going to be in here. Kyle, he's my NBA guy, right? He's my NBA guy there. So hopefully Kyle's back. We'll talk to him about that game coming up there. We got lots to get into Friday here on the show. So hopefully catch you guys all back here on Friday. But with that, this has been Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll catch you guys back here on Friday. But until then, see ya.